I've been talking about the benefits of creating your podcast using Anchor for quite a while, but today there are so many more benefits that I can't imagine using a different hosting platform. And that's because Anchor, the world's largest podcast hosting platform, has now combined with Spotify for podcasters to create an all-new, first-of-its-kind platform with everything you need to create and grow a podcast. This means that you are now able to combine Anchor's all-in-one free hosting and distribution with all the best features Spotify has to offer, so you can make, manage, and level up your show. This includes the ability to upload or record your content, publish video podcasts to Spotify, add interactive features like Q&A and polls, choose from a number of monetization tools, and keep track of your show's growth with advanced analytics. And of course, you can still publish your episodes and distribute them to all platforms where your podcast is available. What makes all of this so amazing is that even if you already have a podcast hosted elsewhere, you can still take advantage of Spotify's free growth tools for podcasters, like analytics and fan engagement. You can do this by claiming your show on Spotify for Podcasters. Spotify for Podcasters is truly the easiest way to make any podcast, manage your show, and get the most out of Spotify. All you have to do is focus on your content, and they'll take care of the rest. For more information, go to podcasters.spotify.com. Hi, I'm Princess Rara.
And I'm Dara, the Electro Khaleesi.
And this is Pink Kink, the podcast where we talk about the pretty,
twisted side of kink.
Today's episode is produced by our electrifying Pink Kinksters. Thank you, Jay, Witcherman, Brianna Lynn, Daddy J, Fabe, Embers, Blossom, William P., Claire, Lady Blooding, Naughty and Nice, Butte Payne, Northern Sir, Manda Panda, Cat, Stefan, Shadow Phoenix, Serenity Deb, Christopher, Kilted Sir, Firegood and his good boy Grant, Brian, May Cry Devil, Ruby Riot, Mistress Velma, Enchanted Sparrow, The Wombat, Impact Hazard, Twitch, Linus X, The Midnight Girl, Sinful, J21, Daisy If You Do, Princess Katharina and Katharina's Thrall,
Harley Chick, Violet Rain, Serenity, Belle, Puppy Mike, Jedi Kitten, Eric, Cat Daddy, Sweetie Todd, Lady Affliction, Dr. Dave, Pumpkin Pie, Ms. Tourmaline, S'more, Hacksaw, Kinky Katie, Wee Mad Beastie, To Be Better For Me, Forrest, BP Bryn, Crash Override, Becca, Sir Sin, Little Bean, Kinky Bear, I'm a Baby Bitches, Barbie, Navigator Bard, Frost, Sinful and Naughty, Coffee and Chaos, Noir, Haley's Comet, and Viva La Brat.
Pink Kink runs off the generosity of our devoted patrons.
As a patron, you will become a member of our special Discord server, receive some adorable Pink Kink stickers, as well as have access to a monthly behind-the-scenes podcast. Patrons also get discounts at our Etsy shop, Pink Kink Boutique, and our online classes at Pink Kink Institute.
In addition, our impactful and electrifying Pink Kinksters get special audio and video episodes. And finally, patrons at our highest tier will be recognized as producers, both here on the podcast and on our website.
If you would like to become a patron, you can visit us at patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast or click the link at pinkkinkpodcast.com.
My master evil plan is coming to fruition.
Okay.
Dara's sick with laryngitis, so I get to do most of the talking. I'm happy.
How is this not like normal though?
Yeah, but now you can't get upset with me about it and say that I'm taking up too much speaking time, because now I'm doing you a favor and I'm taking care of things because you don't have a voice.
You did this to me on purpose, didn't you?
So I get to do all the talking and still look like the hero. Win!
Actually, you know whose fault this is? 110% Daddy J.
Oh, okay. I can work with that. You tell me who you need me to blame, and damn it, that as long as it's not me.
No, he did this. He got sick first and gave it to me. Jerk.
Idiot. Meanie. poopy pants.
Yeah, and then my dumbass went out last night anyway, and by the time I was done, Rara and I are in the car, and she's like, "The fuck happened to you?"
Yeah, poor. Well, we'll talk about this in another episode, but poor Dara kept Rara hours and not Dara hours.
No, I'm
So
dying.
that's a struggle. That's a struggle for her too.
So I'll blame Rara for that one when I'm not dead.
Okay, I'll accept that. But we're having another batch of 2 long episodes. Our
Like we
last
do.
big long episodes for 2023, because after much anticipation and a lot of work, we are finally ready to discuss the Smut Lovers Conference that I went to back in September. So no
many
rush or
moons
anything.
ago.
Well, there were a lot of interviews to be had, and trying to schedule all these interviews with these authors was not easy. Everybody wanted to participate, and there were a couple of people that I absolutely wanted to make sure that we included, like Nikki Rome, the person who created Smut Lovers. I sort of felt it was really important. Yeah. So that took a little while, but we did. We got everybody, and we ended up with so many interviews that, heads up, guys, this is going to be a slightly different kind of podcast episode for us, because we're just going to let the interviews stand on their own and let everybody, talk for themselves.
I can't discuss any of them right now.
Well, that's true. I pretty much asked everybody the same basic questions. I didn't get fancy. Sorry, guys. But I really wanted to get a firm understanding of why these authors chose to come to a convention where they would be educated about smut and kink, and what they hope to learn, what they learned, and what kind of stuff we're going to see from them in the future. So I think it's probably best if we just start running the tape with all the interviews, because there's a lot.
Tape, Rara, run the tape.
I was trying to steal stuff from like sports. Run the tape. Okay.
It's okay.
I know. Sports ball. I'm speaking sports ball.
I don't understand.
Language.
I really, truly did not understand. I thought it was like a roll that footage or whatever from back in the day when there was actual tape.
Yeah. It used to all be tape. I know. Back in my day, we used tape and we liked it that way.
Hell, back in my day too. All right. Let's do this thing.
We have the wonderful Ashley Michele, who is not only an author, she was also one of the presenters as part of the education and the assistant director for this whole amazing weekend. So welcome, Ashley.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So the question I always start off with everybody is, what made you decide to get involved with Smut Lovers?
Me and Nikki were already friends, and I had a book that I wanted to do that was going to be like spicy book talks guide to kink. But in the book, I talk about how I don't necessarily know that I want to give myself the responsibility of being called an educator. And like, as a librarian, I just like giving resources to people. So that's like why I took the book in the companion direction that I did. But so I literally had just written the foreword for the book, and then Nikki had said, I have this crazy idea, Ash, and I would like to run it by you. And it was about doing just the Smut Lovers podcast. And then it turned, and it just like spiraled into a huge thing. And I don't even know when it became a thing, but then it became a thing. And then we were talking about venues and things that people would be eating, and we were talking about inviting people, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, let's do
Yeah, it's officially a thing now. A big thing.
Yeah, now it's a thing.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the companion, because I do want to talk about that, because that was quite an endeavor you did to put that together. So first, why don't you tell everybody exactly what this smut companion is?
So the Smut Lovers Companion Guide is I wanted it to kind of be like a conversation. Like, I've always wanted to do either like kinky introductions kind of stuff, or just like talking about it either on my YouTube or on any of my platforms. or like have a podcast, but I never really like put the time and energy into doing that. And so I was like, this is my chance to kind of talk about it from both a reader and a writer's perspective. You know, there's a lot of things that run around spicy book talk. And so I wanted it to kind of act as a resource guide for anyone who was like, oh, I kind of like this thing. Like, where can I go to find more information about that? And I think that's very librarian of me. So, you know, I just, it matched my vibe. And that's kind of all I wanted it to be, was like this conversation with me personally that people could go and look at and be like, oh, I'm interested in these things. Who might know that answer, or who might have more information for me?
That had to have been a lot of work to put that all together.
It was.
So kudos to you. And
Thank you.
I would like to let everybody know that Ashley is a saint, because I got to participate in the beta reading of this book, and I had a lot of comments. And she handled them like a champ.
I was actually so like nervous. I was like, you know, because I don't have a lot of educator friends or anything like that. There was a couple of educators that I had known back in the day and stuff. And I was like, well, I don't like have those connections anymore. And then Nikki had said that you might be interested in doing it, or that you'd said something about it. And I was like, but what if she doesn't like me? And I was very nervous to have you read it, but I always want constructive feedback on anything. So you know, all your comments and questions were perfectly what I needed. It helped me narrow things down better, and I super appreciate you for them.
It is just as it is, I know for you, it was a labor of love, because I am a diehard romance fan. And so anything I can do to help make it even better, like, I'm signed up, I'm there for it. The minute like Nikki and I started talking, I bombarded her with emails, because I'm like, okay, what do you need next? What can I do? Because I was so excited. And now I'm like counting the days down till 2024, but it's fine. It's just fine.
Same.
So what are some of the plans for 2024?
For Smut Lovers specifically?
Yeah.
So it's definitely Moulin Rouge themed. We've made it official. And am I allowed to tell everybody things? What am I allowed to say? Nikki, help me. We're hoping that the performance will be able to be up and be Moulin Rouge themed as well, because we both love Moulin Rouge so much. And I hope that it all falls into place, because the performance is going to be amazing and wonderful, and we love.
And it's been confirmed there's a dance floor, because apparently that was
because
necessary.
It was so highly requested. Like, I think we were both very surprised by that, you know, just because we're well, Nikki's not too much of an introvert. I'm an introvert. But, you know, knowing and seeing like a couple of cons and stuff, specifically with books and stuff, everyone loves the dance floor, but they do kind of like, you know, it's slow to get people on, it's slow to get people off. And so the fact that everyone was like, where's the dance floor? I was like, dang, okay, y'all really want this dance floor.
I don't think it's going to be a problem getting people to dance. I just have to remember to pack flats for that night so I can get up there.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I know we're also adding an additional day of education.
Yeah.
So
yes,
what kind of stuff do you hope and are thinking about for next year?
So some of the stuff that we wanted to really focus on, we didn't really, you know, I think originally want to focus on craft stuff too much in terms of for writers, because there's plenty of conferences that, you know, provide that. But some of the things that we are going to be like working with is diversity and inclusion, different body sizes, race, you know, being able to talk about those kinds of things, especially in the world of kink, can sometimes be a little bit hairy for some people. And so we have some, you know, really great educators and some really great panelists that we're hoping to have attend, and to really just be able to provide more of that inclusivity and more of that, you know, shameless, like, or non-shamey, non-judgy, like, let's open things up to everybody and really like get into the nitty-gritty of it. So, I mean, and that's one of my personal favorite things that I'm hoping that we get to really hone in on this year.
Yeah, I loved For me personally, like I love the amount of people who came to me after my presentation who were like, okay, so this is not something I will ever do, but wow, that was fascinating. And I'm like, that is more than fair because I know people are going to be into everything that I'm into. I'm kind of used to that. But the fact that everybody was so accepting, it's like, yeah, they were definitely your kink is not my kink, but that's okay. And it was absolutely fantastic.
Beautiful. Yes.
All
That's
right.
what
Now,
we want.
I know you're also a writer. So what inspiration did you take from this weekend?
No, I'm like gonna be so honest. This weekend was just like a fucking blur. Like in terms of I don't think that I took much inspiration, but I got to like feel and process all of the like big feelings of what was really happening. And that I think that like, I mean, is inspiration enough to just like continue writing the things that I personally want to write, you know?
There's definitely a thing. All right. Here's the next question. I make everybody give me an answer on this. Who were you fangirling over and excited to meet?
You.
Oh.
So that was like, like you can ask Nikki. I was absolutely terrified. I was like, oh my God. And then you were so warm and welcoming. I was like,
I promise I only bite with consent.
We love that. We love that. But like I've listened to the podcast and I've seen like your videos and I was like, I'm usually, and I know that I think I was the one who like jumped into y'all's DMs, but like I can do that for other people. But when it comes to for myself, it's very much like, oh my God, stay away. Don't look at people too hard. Everything's fine.
So many people, myself included, have walked away from this conference feeling like we found a family, right? And lifelong friends. And like, I'm making plans next year to stay extra so I can go with Amity and her wife to Disney.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I love that. Oh my God.
Because I haven't been to Disney, let's put it this way, since before you were probably born.
Oof. It's been a minute. It's time.
Yeah, so it's time for me to go. But that's been, I read in our Facebook group and like the comments are still happening and everybody is so excited. And I think you guys really should pat yourselves on the back for that because this was something special. And you've created this family. I mean, all of us who come from different genres, but we all agree on the smut part. I mean, there was people, I mean, you had everything from your daddy kink to monsters.
Monsters, yeah. I was living for it.
Which was great. I mean, there was some of the cover models came. So that was so fun. Cool. The games, even the reader games. I had so much fun with the Punish Me Daddy game.
I didn't get to see it. How was it?
God. If you walked past the room, I had a couple people come up to me afterward and were like, what were you guys doing there? Because every time we walked past, we just hear laughter after laughter. I'm like, we had a blast.
I'm so glad.
So yeah. Any last words you want to say? Promote next year? I mean,
next year, please, everyone come. The VIP reader tickets, I think, are either sold out or almost sold out. There are like only a couple left. So
like the author tables, you're already up to a wait list for that.
Yeah, we had to shut it down because it was just people are, and I mean that's good, right? Like that's what we wanted, but it was just like, oh my God, y'all, September has barely ended.
No, there's not some of us with countdowns. We wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Happy to hear it.
About 350 days somewhat, but we're not counting or anything.
Give or take.
All right. Now I just want to give you a chance to promote your books. So where can people find your books?
Oh, you can find them on Amazon. They'll definitely be on Audible soon. So that'll be fun. I did the narration for the Smut Lovers Guide, which was absolutely scary and nightmarish, but it'll be out and beautiful soon. My producer has it currently, so
that's
by the end of the
cool.
week.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. It was a blast.
Of
I'm
course.
so glad to finally have met you in person. I hope you're not scared by
Yes.
me anymore.
No, not anymore. Not anymore.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. So I am here with the lovely Eskay Kabba. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited too. And I know you guys, this is audio only, but I have to tell you, besides the fact that Eskay is beautiful herself, she's got this gorgeous poster behind her with this guy with a six-pack. So I'm enjoying myself very much.
That's the book. That's Connor and Jamel.
Ooh. All right. So what made you choose to come to Smut Lovers?
I write romance, but I also write erotic romance. And so I was looking for conferences that were more open to my genre and people that were going to be excited about reading, smut. and so when the opportunity presented itself, I was like, this has to be my people's here.
Right.
And then I got there and I was like, these are my people's. And so very excited to be a part of that. And even before we did the conference, we had our own Facebook group and we're sharing thoughts and ideas and books and things like that. And it was just so amazing from beginning to end.
I know I've spent more time lately on Facebook than I had in the longest time because of the Smut Lovers group. And I'm having a blast in there.
Right? And I'm still having a blast in there. It's so amazing.
It's our people. It is absolutely our people.
It's our people. I'm telling you.
All right. So what were you hoping you were going to learn? Was there anything specific or just in general?
I am a new writer. I'm a new author. I've been writing for many years, but my first book was published in Hidden Love, was published in January of 2022. And so for me, I really wanted to connect with other writers. Yes, I want to connect with my readers, obviously, but I also wanted to connect with other writers, more seasoned writers that have been doing this work, and just kind of learn at their feet and gather that information. But then there was also a lot of the workshops that I was really interested in just going to and just kind of learning a little bit more about. I don't know if you guys know who Dominic Ashen is, but it was the first time that I had met him in person. And I was so excited that we were sitting next to each other in a ropes class. And when they were like, oh, pick a partner. And I turned to him, I was like, I'm sure you don't want me to tie you up. And he's like, yeah, sure, go for it. And just held out his arm.
Yes.
Yes. So I kind of used his arm to learn this whole ropes thing. And then he posted it on the social media. If you guys go to his social media page, it's so funny.
It's you are now mine because I've tied you up. And so you're here with
me. Exactly. Right. But yeah, so it was just kind of the little workshops that I wanted to learn and also just get to know people. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Just to let you know, I have a white and orange tabby who is going to try to jump across the screen at some point. I know you guys can't see it, but come on,
we've had many a cat who has decided they wanted to be part of the podcast.
Yeah.
It could be worse. We interviewed somebody and their cat went right in front of the screen and presented their butthole for us all to stare at. So we're kind of anything goes when it comes to this, and it's all good.
That's how I like it.
All right. So did you find inspiration from any of the workshops? Do you think we'll start to see some extra stuff appearing in your books?
Oh, absolutely. I had left there with so many new ideas. One idea that had been kicking around in my head was a story of a young woman who was learning to become a sub. Also part of why I wanted to come to Smut Lovers. So I knew there was going to be a lot of that information there as well. And yeah, I left that conference I absolutely know how her story is going to go from beginning to end. And so, yeah, that story might be coming out a little soon. So that's exciting. And just meeting Ashley Michele, who gave us the
smut companion.
Essentially our smutty companion. And I just kind of went through it and just kind of learned a lot about, just the lifestyle in general. And it was so inspirational to me that I went up to her and I told her, I'm writing this book, but in my book, I want to present I once wanted another character to present her with this particular book and kind of name you in it and just say, like, this is, Ashley Michelle's essentially companion to the Kink lifestyle. And she was like, oh, so yeah, I'm like promoting her book in my book. And I'm excited about that too.
I love it. It was a whole weekend of fangirling, right?
It was.
Like, all right, so fess up. Who did you fangirl over while you were there?
Oh, absolutely, Whitney Miller. And the funny thing is, I had been following her on Instagram for a while because, I always knew she drops knowledge like in her little segments. And so just knowing that she was going to be there and being able to kind of like shake her hand and, play it cool, because one of my things, I volunteered in the first assistant to the assistant. So I did like the panels and things like that. And just being able to be that close to her was so amazing. And I told her probably like on day 3, like Saturday, I went over to her and I said, so I haven't told you, but I've been a little fangirling a little bit because I've been following you and just kind of knowing that you're here. And I was like, can we take a picture? And we took a picture. So that was fun. So
that's one of my favorite things about going to these events is watching the people that I fangirl over have their own people that they fangirl over. And it's just a love fest.
It is a love fest. Yes. I am so excited.
All right. So here's the important thing. Are you coming back next year?
Oh, so here's the deal. Well, okay. I don't know yet. It's a 50-50 because my plan was, so this actually kicked off my book tour. That's what I like to call it, because after Smut Lovers, I'm going to be in New Jersey, Collingswood, New Jersey for a book festival. And then have some other events coming up, a Polycon in April.
Oh, you're going to do a Polycon. That's in my neighborhood.
Okay, cool. Well, let's be there. I'll be there. And then Literary Love in Savannah over the summer. And then I signed up for Authors in Still City in Pittsburgh in September. So that was going to be my September thing. So it was like I was going to try a bunch of different conferences and just kind of see, where my people were.
Right.
But after going to the Smut Lovers Conference, they're like, these are my people. Now I'm trying to figure out, okay, can I squeeze in Smut Lovers? Like, can I fly from like Pittsburgh to Orlando back to Philadelphia in a week? Like, can I do it?
You're going to be tired, but yeah, you can do it.
I think I can. So it's a 50-50 right now. I'll know for sure as time goes on. Honestly, like, even if it's just being able to come down for one day and just connect with readers, because that's the other thing. For me to be a new writer, and have someone walk past my table and like, yeah, I read all your books. Like, that was like, that was like so amazing to me, that I have like readers that read my stuff and like, email me and tell me about, the characters they love, the characters they hate. And I mean, that's probably the best part. Like, I love people being able to gush over my work and having conversations about like characters that they love to hate. And, I mean, that was super fun. And then being able to bring in more readers. I had met this, it was a group of girls who, I shouldn't say girls, that's disrespectful. It was a group of women who came past the table, and one of them, and I always start with, no, do you read MM romance? Because not everyone reads, gay male romance. And so one of the ladies had said, not really. I mean, I've tried it, but I find it just kind of be boring and just not my taste. And, that's fine. And her other friend was like, yeah, I read. So she's like going through my books and we're having this whole conversation. And I read my own stuff. So I just happen to have like one of my, vet books there. And I had just opened it to page 1. And while I'm talking to one person, I just handed the book to the other person, just have her read the first page. And so she read it. And then she looks up to me and goes, yeah, I'm getting this book.
Oh, there you go. I love it.
So I like created a new fan. And so like, it's things like that that's so exciting. So being able to come just to the Smut Lovers Conference, just for, a little bit of workshops and being able to do some book signing, that may be what I do. Or what I really want to do is find a way to do all 3 days. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you can make it, because I know there's been some discussion about having more queer discussions, panels or whatever, so we can get more queer representation in the books.
Yeah, I hope so. I know it was a couple of us, maybe like two or three over here, and Dom Ashen, but he does, what I consider monster fucking. That's just me. That's what I call paranormal. That's what I call paranormal romance. It's just monster fucking. And so he's like super popular over there and selling out his books over there. And then it's me and a couple people over here, but I didn't really see a whole lot of LGBT representation, and I would love to see some more of that. So yeah. You're selling me. Like, I'm just gonna go just because of that.
I'll be there next year. I'm coming back and presenting.
Awesome.
No, not about blood again. I won't do that to people again a second time.
That was a kicker.
It's fine. It'll be fine. All right. I want to give you a chance to promote your stuff. So tell people where they can find your books.
You can literally find them anywhere, paperback and ebooks for the Hidden Love series. It's Amazon, it's Barnes and Nobles, it's Apple Books, it's Google Books. I mean, you literally can find these books anywhere. So this is my main series that's out. It's 5 books all together. But I always say, read the first book and see if it pulls you in. It's gonna pull you in, just so you know. And so I have that series, and then I have a bunch of standalone stories that are specific to Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. And then I have a new series starting in January. I'm really excited about that one. That is the first book is called A Plain and Simple Connection. So it's out for pre-order right now. Again, you can get that anywhere. And then follow me on Instagram, Eskay Kabba, Kabba, or just go to my webpage, www.esskaykabba.com. I should spell that out so SK, people don't know, people haven't realized, is my actual initials, the S and the K. I just made it together into one
Clever.
word, and so that's why I'm SK. And it helps because when I go to conferences and I don't have to think twice about what my name is. That's me in a nutshell. I'm, super excited to see the growth and the impact that my books have had on people. And you can also find me on Literotica. I still throw out free stories there too. I don't know if you guys know what literotica.com is.
Yes.
But that's where I started writing stories. And I'm there as Kabba 118. So Kabba 118. So you can find me there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy writing schedule to talk to us. And I'm going to look for this new book that was inspired by the conference.
Oh, yeah. That's probably I didn't start writing it yet. So probably 2025. Give me 2025 when it drops. I know. Maybe I'll surprise you. Maybe end of 2024. We'll see. Maybe I'll have it in time for the Smut Lovers Conference, and I can say, this story inspired last year, right?
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Now I get to welcome Murphy Wallace to the podcast. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. We are so lucky to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome. Thank you.
Had such a great time at Smut Lovers. I'm still riding the high from it. How about you?
I mean, me too. Oh my God, it was a hell of a time. I mean, sometimes, first year signings, you're not sure which way they're going to go. And I just think that at every single turn, the organizers had it planned to the T, to the nines. It was just absolutely fantastic.
What made you decide to come to the Smut Lovers Conference?
So previously there was a huge conference that was similar. It had a similar feeling to Smut Lovers in Orlando. And I thought once I heard about Smut Lovers, I thought that it could very easily kind of take the place of that signing, which was going away. It had its last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to get into Smut Lovers at its inception and see what it was all about and see if it was going to kind of fill the void left behind by the previous conference. And I definitely think that it did that.
Cool. What were you hoping to learn at this conference?
I was really wanting to learn just more about, so I have, a very high level. I have not dipped my toes yet into the community. And so everything that I have is just very high level or things that I've read or articles that I've, searched when doing a little bit of research. I do have 2 books that barely scratch the surface of, BDSM and kink. only because I was afraid to write. I don't like writing things that are untrue, so I didn't want to go too far and just be completely wrong. So I really wanted to come to this conference so that way I could write further into the world and into the community in future books. And I do think that I was able to finally scratch that surface. I know that there's still a ton more to learn. And I'm so anxious to learn all of the things. So I'm really looking forward to next year.
So you were inspired. Are we going to start to see some of the things you've learned in future books?
I sure hope so. I mean, the two books that I have, I really enjoyed writing them, but I do think that they could have been better. They could have, but as I previously stated, I didn't want to go quite too far without knowing what I was doing. So I do hope to dive further into the BDSM trope in future books.
A lot of possibilities there.
Yes.
What would you say from the different classes and panels and stuff? Like, what was something you really took away from the educational part?
The two ones that really stick out were the BDSM 101. I think that's, you guys covered a lot of like groundwork, as far as just getting like finding your footing in the lifestyle. You included just enough information to give me an idea of what kind of goes on, but to also leave me really curious about diving deeper into certain areas. And then the second class that I really enjoyed was the one that you did with Master Cecil and Darcy about the fiction versus reality dungeons. That was really important to me to go to that one as well. Again, just to make sure that I know what's real and what's not. And I do understand that in fiction, you can kind of elaborate or you guys gave the example of, there's not really many themed rooms in some dungeons, but there are in others. And, so I understand you can go into that more in a fictional manner, but I really loved the hearing about what the actual expectation is at a real life dungeon.
Yeah. I mean, look, I read these books. I wish there were dungeons like some of these that I read about in books. It's a very fine line when you're reading them to be like, okay, that's just outright false. That would never happen to, okay, that doesn't happen, but I wish it would happen.
Sure.
There's definitely different levels. What would you say your favorite part of the weekend was?
Gosh, so many. I really honestly, and this holds true for the majority of the signings that I go to. Honestly, it's the networking and the meeting new people. I never sign up for a signing or go to a signing with the intention or the thought that I'm going to sell all of the books. It's more just I like to meet other authors in the community. I like to meet, in this case, other members of the Kink community. Whether they were an author or not. And then also the readers. It was really, really great meeting because I feel like I touched on, there were a couple of readers that I've seen at other signings and that I've developed a relationship with over the years, but there were a whole lot of new readers that I was able to meet. And that was really, really special for me.
I know that there were, for me, a lot of authors that I hadn't heard of yet, and you're one of them. And so now I have this very lengthy list because my goal is to read one book from every one of the authors who were there.
Nice. Okay. That's a good goal.
So that's my goal. And then I figure I'll find somebody that I resonate with, and then I'll start to go through more of their books. But it's a lot of books to catch up on.
Yes. It is. And I will agree with you as well. There were a number of authors that I wasn't familiar with prior to the conference that now I'm really looking forward to going back and reading some of their work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you get to know them on a different level, like on a personal level. So now you really are more invested and want to read. So
yes, definitely.
The other thing I always ask people too is I know I was fangirling, and I know there was a lot of fangirling happening. Who would you say you were really excited and fangirling about meeting?
Definitely R.L. Calder, which it's funny because a couple weeks ago, I actually ran into her at a concert, like in the wild, like not in an author related event at all. So when I first saw her and, I had like a couple drinks, so it was like a little bit easier for me to be like, oh my gosh, hi, hey. So it was really nice to see her again. And Greer Rivers, I fangirled over her a little bit. And then also Katie Robichaux. I was looking forward to meeting her. And then some new authors that I will now be fangirling over as well. So
I love it. So you are going to come back next year?
I am. Yep. I'm officially signed up and deposit paid, ready to go.
Excited. I'm going to be there too. So I'm
Yay!
super
hoping.
thrilled. Oh, definitely. Well, I've been a smut reader for longer than some people at the conference have been alive. And because I started reading as a teenager, stole my mom's bodice rippers and, back in the day. So to take that, and then of course my love of kink and put it together, it was definitely my happy place and surrounded by my people. So it was perfect.
Yes, it was. I agree with that. And the other thing is, there have been some great signings that I've been to, and they've been absolutely amazing. But there was just the feeling of this signing was just complete and utter acceptance on every level, no matter who you are or where you were coming from or where you fit in the community, or if, whatever. And even like, as far as the LGBTQ aspect and, just from all angles, there was just an acceptance of everybody, no matter who you were or where you came from. And that was something that it's not, sometimes, I don't want to like throw anything or anybody under the bus. It's just sometimes there's like, you hear stories like, oh, well, this happened. And it might not be something that I was aware of at the time, but like I heard about it afterwards of something that happened at a signing or whatever. But there was just none of that this year. I didn't hear any stories like, oh, well, did you hear about this that happened, or, whatever. There was like no drama, nothing or anything like that. So that was really, really great.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I absolutely agree. I've been to many different signings, and I find, I found there was sometimes like judgment because you had different genres, and,
yes.
There didn't seem to be that acceptance. But at this one, it didn't matter what genre you wrote in. We all had smut that pulled us together. And I felt like everybody that I met was really just a friend that I hadn't met yet. And you could sit down and just talk and connect. And there was zero judgment on anything. And that's a really special feeling that a lot of us who read this type of stuff don't always get. There's still that difficulty, I read romance and people look down at you. And then I read smutty romance, and now they really look down at you.
And now they really look down at you. I agree with everything that you just said.
So I'm excited. So what are you hoping to accomplish next year? Like, is there certain subject matters you want more education on?
It would be nice to have like a BDSM 102 class, or like a BDSM 201 class, or, like the next level, just to kind of sink a little bit further into it. I am going to try and branch out and, maybe go to a few classes at the Woodshed or something between now and then. So I'm not quite as in the dark, as I was going into this one. I'd like to have a little bit more. And also I feel not that I ever felt like I wouldn't be like welcomed in the dungeon, but it just like getting to know Master Cecil and Darcy. And, if you're not familiar with that, walking into it, it's like being naked in the middle of a room with someone. And it's funny because, in the dungeon, you really can be naked in the middle of a room in front of people, but you know what I mean? It's like having a dream where like you're naked and nobody else is. It's just it can be, uncomfortable or weird or, whatever. So I think now just kind of meeting everybody, I'm going to definitely take more advantage of the classes that they offer, and even just going on like some fun nights too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. One of the things that I have offered for Nikki to do next year, because along with what you're talking about, I think it's important. I'm going to be doing demonstrations of impact. So I'll bring some of my impact toys and do impact on anybody who is interested in trying it. So when you write about these things, you've actually experienced and felt them. Because
that's awesome.
That's something that I do as I demo top impact all the time. So it's something I'm very comfortable doing. And I thought that would be a lot of fun. All right.
Yeah, no, that's great.
I like to give everybody a chance to promote their work. So where can people
Okay.
find your stuff?
I only have one book in KU at the moment. I am a wide author, so you can find my stuff on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Kobo, Eden Books, and Apple Books. I write mostly dark romantic suspense, so all of my books have some element of like fucked up shit going on in them. Usually characters with like a really dark past, or even if they don't have a dark past, they, something crazy messed up happens to them in the present, and then somewhere along the line they fall in love with, sometimes it's the villain, sometimes it's the good guy, and then they will get there happily ever after, but they usually have to go through a lot of obstacles in order to get there. So lots of triggers in my books, so if you don't like triggers, then probably not for you. But I list all of my triggers and content warnings on my website, so you can check them out there too.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and talking with us today. And I am definitely going to see you next year.
I'm so excited. And thank you so much for having me. This has been an honor. I really appreciate it.
Well, now I get to talk with Shannon Elliot, who is a reader, an author, and she was the volunteer coordinator for the conference, which is basically means she was herding cats all weekend long. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
This has been everyone I've talked to. We haven't come down from the high yet. Everybody had amazing, wonderful things to say about this weekend.
Well, and people are still posting photos and videos. They're talking about books and getting ready for next year. Nikki has already started sending me and the rest of the team forms so that we can plan for next year. I don't think the momentum's going anywhere but forward.
No, I'm trying to be so good and not bombard her, but I've got ideas of classes and things, especially based upon these interviews that I'm doing, talking to authors and seeing what they want to hear for next year. So yeah, I'm trying to be kind and give her some space.
She said, I think that she's going to take a little bit of a break now that she's done with the week after, but then I'm sure she'll be full speed ahead again, as she does.
Well, the fact that we've all already signed up for 2024 and 2025 is the biggest compliment. We are so eager to do this again.
Yes. And I think it's only going to get bigger every year because it is such a valuable, not only kind of social event, but educational event for authors. I think people learned so much in that 1.5 days that it makes sense that people want to come back because they want to learn from experts and people with lived experience.
Yeah, the things that I heard is they loved the kink and smut education, but they also love just as much the author-only panels and being able to hear from other established authors with experience.
Yeah.
They want both.
Those the marketing panels and things like that happened, specifically when you're talking about people who are newer to their author career. I mean, I only have 3 books out and started maybe 2 years ago versus people who have 30 books out. Just getting that range of experiences and things from the workshops are amazing. And then obviously I personally really, really enjoyed all the kink sessions. But I'm a little biased because I was getting a 2-for-1 deal there. But
yeah.
It was great.
So what made you decide to not only attend Smut Lovers, but so graciously volunteer to be the director of volunteers?
I have trouble not volunteering for things. I like having things to do. So coming to Smut Lovers was an easy decision because it was such a great opportunity to learn, network, hang out with readers, just do all the things that I think authors want to do. But then when I was talking with Nikki, we were doing an episode for the Smut Lovers podcast. And afterwards, as one does, you get to chatting and you're talking about your life and what's going on. And she was telling me about how she was not even on the page where she was starting to think about volunteers, but people were already asking how do I volunteer? How do I get involved? How can I help? And I mentioned to her that in a professional capacity, I used to work in volunteer management and event management. And so I was I can do it. And she just said yes. So it was a pretty easy kind of cooperation between parties. And I was really excited to do it because it's one thing to coordinate volunteers in like a professional setting for an organization that you work for. It's another thing to coordinate volunteers who have so much excitement and passion like the Smut Lovers volunteers did.
We did. We really did.
Y'all were so amazing. There was so much enthusiasm. At one point, one of the volunteers came up to me because I was doing the author signing, and she took my clipboard from me and she was like, "Tag, you're no longer it." And she just took over for me for a couple hours.
Oh, that's perfect.
And it's that kind of like love and passion that I loved about Smut Lovers, you know?
That is the one thing that everybody has walked away with, that like we all feel now we're one smutty family together.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, you were kind enough to let me hang out in your hotel room without you, so I wouldn't have to sit in the lobby anymore.
Always happy to help a fellow smut lover. But I think it also extended to like the kink educators that we had there. Like, I think that in a way we brought them into our community a little bit. I had some of them that I was just having small conversations with, and they were talking about like how educational it was for them to see the other side of the more like fictional aspect and like some of the challenges that come with writing smut. Like sex, BDSM, kink, they're very different. I mean, I was on the fiction versus reality panel, and you can get into these like tropes that exist in fiction that like are just kind of repeated because that's what people expect. But then you start talking to the experts and the people who like have lived this and who teach this and who like are constantly, it's like a passion of theirs that they're willing to educate others on. And it's like, oh, well, then we can make changes to this to make our smut more realistic. And I love realistic smut. So much fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's really, as somebody who's both a kink educator, but I'm also an absolute diehard romance reader, I understand some fiction has to be involved. Like, I get that. But there's also that line where now you've crossed where you're so far removed from reality, I just can't read. And so the ability for me to come in and say, hey, this and that, and like work together. Like I beta read for somebody. And we had this whole experience where I said to her, okay, I have a problem with this scene with consent in this. And we talked it out and came up with a good compromise between what she was going for and the atmosphere she was setting and my need to like, you got to have consent.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted people to walk away with from that weekend, from my standpoint.
And I think a lot of people did. I definitely heard a lot of conversations where people were talking about how they feel like they're more prepared to incorporate things, especially when we did the roundtables. There were so many questions being asked that were like directly about like, I went to the one about like the reality of dungeons, and like there were questions being asked about like, well, what's the atmosphere look like? What does it look like in a dungeon? I was asking questions personally about like, so what are the finances like for a dungeon? Because like these are things that it's like that is like such a unique opportunity to learn about those aspects of kink and BDSM and like conversations about consent among both writers and like lived experience people that like you're not necessarily going to get when you're in your author silo just by yourself writing. And so if you go into your author silo having this information and having these conversations in the back of your head, then I'm hoping that that comes out in your writing and that we're prioritizing things like consent and communication and all the like fundamentals of kink, because I don't want people to use smutty books as an instruction manual.
Yeah.
But some people toe that line, and I'm like, we got to do better here. And I think that's the responsibility of authors to do the best that we can so that kink is portrayed in a way that is both accessible to people and isn't something that they are afraid of anymore, or at least like that fear can be brought back to a more realistic standard, but also that like, if they want to start exploring things or if they're curious about things, it's something that like they're able to see a like consensual, good communication kind of scene in a book rather than something that's going to get them in trouble later on.
Right. Well, I know for one thing that I see, and I know that you're also a kinkster out in the wild.
Yes.
Negotiations. I see so many books where the negotiations are happening during the scene, which is a huge no-no in the kink real world. You don't negotiate during the scene. It all has to be done beforehand. And that's the kind of stuff like I would like to work out with authors, like, because it's one thing. Okay. So, right. You've written this fantasy dungeon with all these theme rooms. Okay. That's not real, but that's not a harmful fantasy, right? That somebody wants to go and then pretend that their bedroom is, Arabian Nights theme. It's not a big deal. But when you start talking about things like negotiations, that can be harmful.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really interesting because when you talk about like negotiation and communication in a romance novel, and specifically when it comes to consenting to kink, I think that there's this like confusion that like it has to happen in the moment because otherwise it's not sexy. Yep. And the reality of it is negotiation can be the sexiest part of an entire kink scene. Like if you're texting back and forth throughout a week with someone about like what you want to do on the weekend or what you want a scene to look like, or you're having like small kind of bits of information that build up into that scene, like there's so much anticipation and like that can help the pacing of a book and also the pacing of that scene and the build up to that kinky scene that readers are going to love. But it just takes a little bit of like education and like creativity to get to a place where it's like, okay, this is realistic and this is hot as hell.
Yeah.
You know?
What would you say you learned this weekend from like a kink standpoint that maybe you didn't already know?
I'm not going to lie. I was doing a lot of running around. So sometimes bite of information here and there. I think the thing that I learned the most, though, is just how varied kink is. Like you mentioned that I myself am a kinkster and like I have lived experience that I base things off of, or at least like inform my own writing. But it was so wonderful to hear different experiences, different perspectives, like a range of also like people with newer experience, people with extensive experience, because I think in many cases, for me, it was a really great realization to have where I was like, oh, when we write kink, there is this general consensus that like the dom is always super experienced, the sub is super new, and that's just how the scene's going to play out.
Yep.
But when you start talking to people and when you start listening on these panels to like the littles and subs and critters panel that we had, you realize that like, oh, well, there's like 100 different ways or more that someone can be a sub, that someone can like be a little, a critter, whatever it is. When you're talking about like dominance, it's the same way. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a guy. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's someone who's super experienced. And it doesn't necessarily mean that like some of those like historically portrayed things in romance novels are always going to be true. And that gives us so much freedom to like explore and try new things. And I think it also gives readers a great opportunity to go, oh, well, that was new. And I really liked that.
Yeah. It's like, if they have a female dominant, it's always like the same stereotypical female dominant where she's in the high heel leather boots and the corset, and she wants to do mean and nasty things to cock balls and humiliate and sissify. Brats are always the same. They're always, the make me brats, and they play little tricks on them, even not in the scene. And yeah, it's so much more than all of that. Yeah. And to be able to see, like I'm in several book groups on like Facebook where people will be like, I'm looking for this type of book. Can you help me find it? And for some of it, it's really hard because I'm like, I don't know that we have a book with, where there's switches and they're, they both switch back and forth and different things, or one's a switch, but now they can't be a switch because the other one isn't. And how does that work? Like all of these things are in real life, but not in a book.
Yeah. And I think that's because a lot of people, when they read fiction, they want to see themselves in fiction to a certain extent. They want to feel like seen and understood. And when they see that in a book, it's like really, in my case, I've read some books where it's like incredibly healing to see that. And so in terms of kink, I think it also plays into just like this idea that if we're writing one formula for every smutty book, A, it's going to get boring. And B, it means that we're neglecting a lot of our readers who have varied interests and various lived experiences. And there's so much opportunity to play. And that's my favorite part about both kink and being an author, is that you play and you have fun and you experiment. And so long as you're doing it safely and you're not hurting anyone, I think you're doing pretty good, Yeah,
I would say I would like to see more humorous scenes. It seems like anytime they're doing BDSM, it's that very serious thing. And I don't do serious scenes for the most part. I'm currently planning an Old McDonald's Had a Farm scene with pink plastic animals. And I got these little plastic pigs. And when I was telling my toy maker, to make something, his thought process is, ooh, I'm thinking 3 little pigs. How can I do that? Right. And like, that's making me think of scenes I can do. I want to see more of that kind of funny, silly scenes and not always I'm very serious about this.
Yeah.
Just my little 2 cents. If any authors are hearing this with us, please, I would like that in a book. Thank you.
Yes, I want that too. I want more laughter, because the thing is, when we watch that scene at the after party between
Miss Rue
and her partner, I think it was Master Cecil who said it afterwards. He was like, we are witnessing love here. And the thing is, like, there is so much great emotion that can happen in kink, but those emotions go both ways. It's not just the serious stuff. It's also the giggles that happen when someone accidentally farts. Like, you never know what's going to happen. And sometimes you just roll with it. But the thing is, like, you're doing this because you enjoy it, both in reading and in real life. And so you should be able to enjoy every moment of it.
I could give you an idea for a very funny scene that actually happened to me. I was wearing a butt plug during an impact scene. And on the very last hit, like a cork, just pop right out. So I'm just saying, we all laughed, but that's real life. The butt plug freaking fell out. It's okay.
See, and my mind immediately goes to butt plug hits like cheek or eye or something like that. There's a hospital visit. It could go so many places and it would be so funny.
That's what I'm saying. So again, here, I just throw out ideas and people can go ahead and run with it. So are you coming back next year as the volunteer coordinator again?
I am. The volunteers have given me no choice. Nikki has given me no choice. I myself have given me no choice. I had so much fun that it was just, there's no way I'm not coming back, especially with like how beautiful of an event this was and how it was like more emotional than I think I realized. I left that weekend and like had to have a little cry because I was like, wow, I found a new community and like a new people that I really connected with and like got to spend time with. And like, here I am tearing up because I'm just thinking about it. But
I'm planning a vacation with Amity and her wife so that when I go next year, I'm staying extra so we can all go to Disney together. So yeah, like we have new family members.
Exactly. Like I got phone numbers of people. It's like, I've known you for 3 days. And yet on my drive back from Orlando to home, I called them and I was like, hey, let's just talk about life. I have 8 hours to drive today.
Well, you can count me in as volunteering, though I'm making a commitment not to do another 7 a.m. shift. That's all it's the only my limits is I can't do it. That was not one of my smarter moves.
I will remind you come sign up time. Princess Rara is specifically not
7 a.m. shifts. So what kind of classes are you hoping to see for next year? What would you still like to learn and experience?
So I already know that Nikki has roped me into teaching a class on corsetry.
Ooh.
Because I have a degree in costume design. And so I've built corsets before. I've worn corsets. I've laced people into them for ballet, for theater, all sorts of things. So I'm really excited to be able to kind of dispel some myths about it and like educate people and kind of get them more comfortable with the idea of wearing one or how you write movement, especially in one. So that's just like a personal thing that I've been thinking about a lot. I'm really excited to see kind of a lot of new topics be introduced in terms of like diversity in romance and in kink, continuing a lot of the conversations that we had from the other panelists, or like I'm excited for more workshops like we had with the rope workshop. I think it's just going to be that extra day of education that we're adding. I think it's going to be so much fun to just get to, again, play and learn and just experiment and see what happens. So I know there's so many good ideas out there, and you seem to have a ton of them.
I have so many. It's like
I feel like we could just program for months, which is part of what the what is it? The Smut
Source.
Yeah. So Nikki has started up Smut Source, and that's going to be another place where we can put a lot of this information, because it's not just once a week every year that you need this information. It's all year when you're like writing a scene or you need something to inform what you're doing. And Smut Source will be there for you.
I know. I'm very excited. I've been holding back ideas for that too, because again, I love romance and I love kink, and I want to make the romance as good as it can possibly be and help out, because I do credit romance with helping me learn about the lifestyle and become involved in it. It was actually a romance author who taught me about FetLife, which is what turned my life around. So yeah, so it's definitely something I plan on doing. All right, one last thing, because I want everybody to have a chance to promote their stuff. So where can people find your books?
So I am on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited for all of my ebooks, but you can find my paperbacks anywhere. Your indie local bookstore can order them. My most recent release is actually a femdom romance, short little novella between mistress and her pet. So that's where you can find me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for volunteering, for helping to make this weekend as smooth as possible, and for hanging out with me for a little bit to talk about it.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we could do this.
Well, we're very lucky now to have Cheyenne Browning with us at the podcast. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
I always make everybody answer up front. Why did you choose to come to Smut Lovers Conference?
I chose to come to Smut Lovers Conference because of the genre I write. I write safe fake paranormal romance with a lot of kink. I am not a vanilla person. I'm far from it. So for me, I like to show that in my work.
Cool.
So Smut Lovers was the next step.
There you go. Well, just in case anybody who's listening doesn't know what sapphic is, can you share that with us?
Is women loving women.
Ah, a beautiful topic.
I know it.
All right. So do you identify as a kinkster as well?
I do.
Awesome. All right. Then, so how did the education part of the whole weekend work for you?
The most I learned would probably be in a rope class, which I had to leave early to go get my tattoo. But other than that, most of it was basic this year. So it was kind of common knowledge. The only thing I actually really learned would be a little bit of the rope and your blood play.
Yay! I figured even if I just made people curious about it, I didn't expect everybody to be like, "Oh, let's go out and do it now."
I mean, I would.
Yes, my people. Yes. That's awesome. So what kind of stuff are you hoping to see next year? I'm assuming you're coming back next year, because so far everybody seems to want to.
I will be back next year, and hopefully 2025 if Nikki lets me.
Yeah, that's right. I know. I've signed up for both of them too.
I've already paid my deposit, so I will be there for 2024. For 2024, I know our theme is burlesque. So they're planning a lot more on the party side of things. I haven't learned anything that they're planning for education yet, but I am hoping to see more deeper, in-depth talking about it. More than just consent talk and the beginnings of BDSM.
Mm-hmm. Like a 201 class?
Yes. Something for us experienced kinksters.
Okay. Hey, you tell us what you need and I will write a class for it. That is not a problem.
I'm down.
One of the things that everybody had a blast with was finally getting to meet some authors that they read and they fangirl over. So who are some of the ones that you were excited about meeting?
Surprisingly, I didn't get to meet as many as I'd hoped. I kind of was nonstop being stopped by everybody. So this was actually my first book signing. Ever.
Awesome.
So I jumped straight into the world. It was an interesting experience. I've met several of the ones there on Facebook, so it was interesting to see Stella in person and Nikki and a few other people that didn't get a chance to come because something came up.
Mm-hmm.
I think I stopped and talked to a few people that were around me at the book signing. And other than that, I really didn't get to talk to a whole lot of people.
We have to fix that for next year.
Amity, I made a point to go see.
Oh, good. I was going to recommend that because she also writes sapphic novels.
Me and her have been friends on Facebook for a while. So as soon as we got a chance, she sent her wife down there to see me to get some of my NSFW artwork. And then I went down there when I got a 5-second break.
So tell us about your NSFW artwork. What kind of stuff do you have?
I do my own artwork currently, and I'm a newish. I was a photographer, so I did a lot of Photoshop work. So I know how to manipulate photos and everything, but drawing straight from scratch is a newer thing for me, and I haven't done it since I was probably a teenager. But with some of my artwork, I currently have 3 done. One of them was too spicy to print for the conference, so I couldn't find anybody in time to print it because of their values.
So you run into censorship with that?
I did, because it involved a monster dildo in the shower. So a lot of people did not like that apparently, and they denied it. But they printed my other 2, so it's kind of funny. The other one was a Gorgon and a Kitsune on the couch, and there was another one that was a demon and the devil's daughter.
Ooh.
And they're in the bedroom at a hotel.
I love it. What inspiration did you pull away from the weekend? Like, what are we going to maybe see in some future books?
Definitely more blood play. I've actually had a short planned for Halloween this month that I will probably be releasing right on Halloween. That's going to be vampires and more blood play, and it's going to be more sutures and needlework and definitely some fun.
Oh, you've made me so happy. Now I'm going to have to read it.
I mean, I won't say no.
Twist my arm, why don't you? Yeah, that's fantastic. What are some of the highlights for you? What memories are you walking away with from this weekend?
The most I walked away with was the community. I cannot count how many people stopped at my signing table just to thank me for being there for the queer community. I didn't stop the entire 4 hours of the signing. I sat maybe 5 seconds here and there to cool down and drink a little bit of water before more people were coming to the table to thank me and talk to me and learn about what I was writing, because there was only a handful of us there because of what's happening in Florida.
Right.
So it was a huge community that I wasn't expecting it to be quite so open and accepting.
That's fantastic. I know there's talk of trying to do more in 2024 for queer content and education.
Yes.
And that would be awesome.
I would love to see that because a lot of authors did not feel comfortable coming, and I totally understand that. It was sad to see so many authors deny their ability to come because of what's happening.
Mm-hmm. How did you work through that?
For me, I'm married to a man. So Florida's going to look at me and say, oh, you're a white woman married to a white man. They're just going to be like, whatever. She's straight. In reality, I'm actually bi, but again, I'm married.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it wasn't a huge issue in my part because of just what I was writing. Because the outward look, somebody's going to look at me and say, you're married to a man. So Florida's just going to look the other way at that point, whereas some of my author friends are not.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I know there was some questions about the fact that it was being done in Florida, and Nikki had put out some amazing information about why, and the fact that it enabled us to offer that safe space for the queer community so that they knew we were supporting them and we were there for them. And we raised some good money for some important charities.
I loved what Nikki put out and all the work she put into everything and the charity money and all. She really went above and beyond.
Well, I'm very excited that you're going to be back again. I am super excited about this book that you're going to put out at the end of the month. But why don't you tell people where they can find your stuff?
All of my books are in Kindle Unlimited.
Ooh.
They are all on Amazon, so they're all available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, so they're easy to get to.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us, and I will definitely see you in 2025, 24, whatever year, both years, I hope.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to meeting you again at the 2024.
Yes. I am very excited about this interview because it's a twofer. We have the amazing Khloe Summer and her cover model, who I'm so sorry you guys can't see because he's sexy as fuck. We have Tony Brettman with us as well. So sorry for all of you. Yay for me. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yay. I'm so happy.
Happy to be here.
So I always start off asking everybody, what made you decide to come to Smut Lovers?
Well, I was friends with Nikki for quite a long time, and she was holding the event, and so I was like, yeah, definitely, let's do this. That's kind of where that started. And then it progressed, the whole thing progressed into this giant event where she was having the woodshed and everything else there. And I was like, yeah, let's see what this about, lady. And yeah, it was crazy, right? The whole event, where it went from where she started wanting to make it a smaller thing, and then it just completely blew up into the best event that I've ever been to, even as a reader.
It was pretty amazing. And then Tony, what made you decide to come?
I mean, this was an easy one because of Khloe. It was my first event with Khloe, and it was one of the best events I've been to. And so I was just grateful and honored to be with her, at Smut Lovers.
Now, do you guys identify as kinky, or are you more vanilla with sprinkles?
I know I live the DDLG life, so I do consider myself definitely not vanilla, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely not vanilla, but I have to keep it somewhat conservative because it's not everybody's cup of tea. So what I do in the bedroom is diverse, we'll say. But being a cover model, it's hard to come out fully with all of your likes and dislikes, just because you don't want to exclude yourself from somebody's appetite, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely a perception you need to work with.
Absolutely.
So did you get exposed to anything that made you think, I want to try that now? And you won't hurt my feelings if you say my stuff did not inspire you, because I'm used to that.
I mean, there was a lot going on. So definitely sensory fulfillment. I wouldn't say overload, just because I'm curious in nature. So I like to see what's out there. Yeah, it was, there was definitely things that caught my eye. I actually really liked the role play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what about you, Khloe?
I don't know. The part for me that was fascinating was meeting other people that had daddy doms, because I hadn't put myself in a situation where I'd met people that live that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I hadn't, looking back now, because having met people that are also living that was really eye-opening for me. And just hearing how other people live that lifestyle and the things that they incorporate into their, even into their their daddy play or their, their sexual fantasies and things like that. Like, that's just stuff that I never talked to anyone else about. So I think just learning how other people do it was interesting, for me to hear as well.
Yeah, it's the daddy dom little girl is such a huge spectrum. I've been in one of those relationships. In fact, my very first DS relationship, I was the baby girl to a daddy dom. And so to meet other people who it's one of those kinks where you would think like it would not be a big deal, right? Like I get when I'm doing blood play, that's a big deal and that scares some folks. You would think like daddy dom stuff would not. And yet even within the kink community, it's still, some people still have issues with it.
They do, right? Yeah, people are just like, oh, they kind of pull back, like, what? And it's like, oh no, it's not what you think it is. For a lot of people, it's different. Like, there's a huge spectrum, like you said, for what it is and what it isn't. And I think that us, my daddy and I doing it the way that we do it is so different from, the way that the other girls that I talked to did it. And then a lot of people, we did things similarly when we didn't, no one was going off by the book. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I don't know. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah. I identify as a switch, and my dominant side is very much what would be a traditional mommy role. But I can't, I just can't have anybody call me mommy because I have my own kids. So that's kind of, it doesn't work for me. But if you actually look at how I'm a caregiver. So there's a lot of us out there. Way more than you probably realize.
Yeah, it's really, really nice to communicate, just to talk to people who live that lifestyle and to know people who are in. And I think that was a really big part of Smut Lovers for me. And even just staying in contact with people afterwards who I talk to that, that live that life. It's really cool.
All right. So we all fangirled over different people who were there that weekend. Who are some of the people you were fangirling over?
I was fangirling over Tony because I was so excited to meet Tony.
Oh, is that the first time you'd actually met him?
Yeah, I mean, we talked for quite a few months before we actually met. But yeah, it was the first time we'd met in person. So it was fun. It was nice. I was excited to meet Tony.
Well, thank you. That's so sweet.
And were the fans kind to you, Tony?
They were. I mean, everyone was super nice. And that's what I love about these events is everybody's inclusive and welcoming. And obviously I was fanboying over Khloe and her husband. Honestly, I consider them family because they were so amazing. We connected right at the gate. So it was awesome. I also got to meet some of the people that I've been speaking to online. Murphy Wallace, Crimson, Becca Jameson, Pepper, Halo Lester, who's a PA. So I got to meet some people that I actually have been speaking to. I've been trying to coordinate different covers or just working relationships. Honestly, everybody I met they were super nice, super kind. And that's what brings me back each time when someone asks, hey, do you want to go to an event? And the experiences at Smut Lovers is why I say yes.
Yeah. It was. I've been to several events and I'm with you, Khloe. I think this was my favorite of any of them that I've been to. There was just, being somebody who loves to read the smut, even when I go to other romance. I was at one romance one and all the authors were talking about the stuff that they write. And Golden Angel was there. And I laughed because she started talking about, she wrote a hoo cow romance. And everybody in the audience is like, hoo cow, what's that? Oh my God. And I'm like, I own it. It's wonderful. You got to read it.
Oh, I was totally fangirl over Golden. Yeah, I was totally fangirl over meeting her. That's awesome.
And so to be in a place where I could say, yeah, I love hoot cow romance. And instead of people looking at me like going, what the fuck are you talking about? They're going, oh yeah, me too. Here, you should read this one. Do you have recommendations for me? Like there was zero judgment, no matter what we read or wrote.
Yeah, it was really, really, really great vibe.
For those that are not privy to all of the lingo and the verbiage, I'm sure you have some listeners that aren't familiar, like I am not familiar with that term. So please educate me on what that is.
Hoot cow is a combination of the words human and cow. And for many, it's a role play where they take on the part of a cow and they get milked. In fiction, there usually involves some sort of magical drug that they take that makes them lactate. Sometimes it makes them lose their voice and they can only moo. It just depends on how deep you want to go down that fantasy.
Gotcha.
Getting an education, Tony.
I sure am. And I love how there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic.
So are you guys coming back next year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. We will be there.
Excellent. Yeah, I got my hotel booked. I tried to book my airplane, but silly little airlines don't book that far out in advance yet.
I know. Are you in the group online on Facebook?
Yes.
You must be, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, I saw she put up all the hotel information recently. Sorry, I need to get on that.
I'm an impulsive person who dives headfirst into stuff. So once I decide I want to do something, I don't want to wait. Let's do it. Let's do it now. And September of next year is so far away, but it's fine. It'll be fine. All right. So
do you do a lot of other events?
I do other kink events. So I will be at a kink conference in December teaching and at a kink conference in January, hopefully teaching. So, but this is my first opportunity to teach kink to romance authors, which as somebody who has been a romance reader a lot longer than I've been a kinkster, this was really special because it truly combined my two favorite loves.
And honestly, it was perfect. It was perfectly fitting. I've been to other events and I like how this one just didn't dance around it. It threw itself in it. Like, you are what you read kind of thing. And I really got a good understanding of what it meant to be like a community involved with romance. Like it just wasn't surface level. It was, both feet in. I thought it was fantastic. It made so much sense to bring the two themes and the two communities together because it just made sense to me.
Yeah, I think a lot of us walked away feeling like we now have an extended family.
Absolutely.
So we're going to see any new inspiration in your books from stuff you learned that weekend?
Oh my God. Isn't it crazy? Yeah, absolutely. Like the rope play, like Tony was saying, that is something that I definitely don't do enough of in my books. So I will definitely incorporate more of that. That definitely was hotter, like in person than I thought it was going to be.
It is. As somebody who's
a lot.
Yeah, I don't top for it, but I bottom for rope suspension. And it is an amazingly delightful kink.
Yeah, I'm like, Daddy, get the ropes out. Like, let's go. Like, let's do this. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. It was erotic, but it was also very like almost kind of emotional, right? Like to watch that. It was 10 out of 10. That's got to go in some books for sure.
For those of us who love rope, one of the coolest ways I can describe it is literally as soon as the rope touches your body, it doesn't even have to be more than they're just putting it up against you to start to bring it around you. Like you just calm and you find your zen. And I call it it's a big hug. It's just a big hug with rope instead of arms.
Yeah, I could see that. People say that about blood play too. I've heard that same, like when that experience is happening, there's like a calming.
I guess, yeah, for me, it makes me hyperactive because I just get excited. I get that runner's high and my endorphins start going nuts and it's just a blast.
You're like, let's go. That's
Oh
great.
yeah, I'm like,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I haven't tried that one.
Ooh. Well, I'm hoping next year, my goal is I'm going to bring a lot more toys than I brought this time. And I will be doing some demonstrations so that people can experience stuff that they might not have had an opportunity to. So when you write about it, you know what it is. But I don't think I'll bring my blood play kit because I don't know that I'll get too many people to sign up for that one.
It's a niche market.
Very niche market. It's okay. More for me.
Oh, I love it.
All right, so Khloe, let's talk about where people can find your books.
Yes, I am on Amazon. I am free in KU. All of the things smutty, small town romance.
I love it. And Tony, do you have any book covers coming up that we can look out for? I know I've seen your feeds on multiple places.
Yeah, obviously, Khloe's got one coming out soon. You know, I have a couple authors that I've done a cover release recently. I believe I have one coming out at the end of this month, but one by Stephanie Dillon just got released, and you can purchase it on Amazon. So if you head over to TonyBrettmanModeling.com, you can find at the very bottom all my cover releases that are out now. There's about, I think, 7, and you can get them on Amazon right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
This time we are talking to my sister in pink, the amazing, wonderful Amity Malcom. Hello, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So Amity and I kind of started our friendship on TikTok first and then counted down the days till we actually got to meet for real. And besties, immediate besties.
It was super cool because I had been following you on TikTok for what felt like years. And then I would constantly see you. And finally I was like, I need to follow them. Like, they have such great information. This is stuff that's not only things that I want to know about for my own life, but is stuff that's going to help me as a writer too. So I went ahead and I gave that little follow. And then not too long after was when I found out that you were actually going to be at Smut Lovers. And I fangirled hard.
Amity was at the reader event. Amity was literally right across from me. So the whole time we just hung out. We had a blast. I keep talking about how I'm making plans to go to Disney the next time. Amity's who I'm going to Disney with.
I think it was really fun that we got to be right across from each other too, because, a lot of the people who write romance have very dark aesthetic when it comes to banners and book covers and everything like that. And then there's me, who's very bright and pink, and Nikki Rome from Smut Lovers has basically said the only person I would ever be confused with is Lisa Frank. And I feel like that's kind of how you feel too with your pink. Yeah. Like, you and I are both very pink, we're bright, we're over the top type of people. So it was perfect that we got to be right across from each other.
I mean, things could be totally smutty and still be pink and bright.
Exactly. Just because we delve into things that might be a little smutty or a little bit on the darker side doesn't mean we can't have fun with it too. And I think that's so important for kink in general.
That's all I'm saying. What made you decide to go to Smut Lovers?
I started writing in February of 21 was my first book.
Oh, so you're relatively new.
I am. Yeah. This February will only be my second year publishing. And I knew I wanted to start doing book signings, and I had looked at a lot of places. I like a lot of the book events that I've seen, but I didn't know that they would quite be tailored to the type of romance that I write. I tend to focus on a little bit more of the BDSM aspects or the realistic relationships that we see in the lifestyle, as opposed to just two people who really like to have a lot of sex in books that we tend to see. So I was kind of hesitant about approaching some of the other signings because I didn't know how I would be perceived as an author. And when I found Smut Lovers, which I stumbled upon somehow completely on accident, and saw that not only was it in Orlando, which is only about an hour from where we live, but when I saw some of the other authors that were going to be there, and that the the emphasis was being placed on education as well as just reading romance. That was really what kind of just made me be like, yeah, this is the first place I need to sign at. I think I found my readers and my fellow authors and educators before I ever stepped foot in that hotel that day.
It was, everybody talks about the fact that there was so much camaraderie and we all felt connected and zero judgment.
Yes.
Everybody's talked about that.
Yeah. And it was really cool too. One of the things that stands out for me, again, in comparison to any other event that I've seen, was how many people brought their spouses and their partners and, boyfriends, girlfriends. Everybody came together. And that was really cool to see from an empowerment movement of these are people who are going and learning what's being taught at an event like this weekend. And they're taking that home with them, not only just from a writing perspective or a reading perspective, but from a lifestyle perspective. They're able to take what they read about now in books every day and learned how to safely bring that into their own relationships with their partners, which is super cool.
So what did you bring home?
Other than some new rope.
Yes.
It's funny because my wife and I are very new into the lifestyle scene as a whole. We've been experimenting with shibari. It's something that we've both really liked. So we've been doing a lot of that over the last probably about year. But being able to see some of these other demonstrations and other types of play that we experience in the literary world too so frequently, and see that done in a real life setting too. Like I know we saw the super cool shibari demonstration. There was the impact demonstration. I think most everybody knows that there was a beautiful, beautiful presenter there by the name of Princess Rara, who talked a little bit more about some of those high risk kinks that we read about. So, I brought home a lot. There are definitely some new things in my life now that I would like to say I would like to attempt or look into more than I would have prior to the event.
You'll have to go through my FetLife pictures and find all my rope suspension pics.
Oh, yes. We would have way too much fun looking at all of those, wouldn't we?
Because I unfortunately, my rigger moved to Florida, to Jacksonville of all places. But yeah, back in the day, it was definitely one of my absolute favorite things to do. And I have a lot of pictures.
That is a
rope suspension.
That just means you have to come to Florida more often now.
What can I say? Yeah, but it's hot there. I don't do heat.
It's been really nice the last couple of days, like even to the point where we've slept with the windows open.
Okay, I'm the person who I've been sleeping with the windows open because it's like 45 degrees outside. So I've got the windows open and I still have two fans going in my room because it's still not cool enough yet for me. So I don't go by me.
We have a sheet, a quilt, and 2 comforters on our bed right now.
Oh my
God. And my wife has been dying. She's been freezing every night. Yet I refuse to turn off the ceiling fan. Like the ceiling fan has to stay on.
My ceiling fan is on 365 days a year, pretty much.
Me too. I need that air blowing on my face while I'm sleeping at night.
All right. So how has your writing been since you've been back? Have you been inspired or things appearing in your books now?
Yes, I actually was in a bit of a writing slump before we started Smut Lovers. So I definitely got kind of a kick in the ass afterwards to be like, oh, I need to get back into the saddle and start writing again. I'm maybe 2 days away from finishing a Christmas novella, which is super exciting for me. This one is going to be a female-male storyline. I very much believe that spice in books should have nothing to do with the sexual pairings of people. I read a ton of male-female romance. I read a ton of male-male romance. I read a ton of female-female romance. And one thing that I found time and time again is when it comes to the female-female romance, it always seems like it's lacking in the spice that the counterparts have, whether it be male-female or male-male romance. So now I'm actually pulling from a lot of what we've learned to look into what future stories I want to bring to the page that have just as much spice as we see in those other stories, while having more female-female relationships within them as well.
That's cool. We need that. We talked, I know Nikki and I have been talking about education for 2024. And we definitely want to put some more emphasis on queer
Absolutely.
relationships.
Yeah.
Because
that was one of the things. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, most everybody I know in my community, from the women's standpoint, identify as bisexual.
Yeah. It's very common. I think it's more common than most people think it is. And that was one of the things that I had talked to Nikki about too. I was writing a list during the entire conference of like, next year we need to see this taught. Next year I want to see this. And one of the things was I said to her, not even from like from a queer woman standpoint, but just I want to see a panel or a round table of queer sex written in books by non-queer people or by people who have not had that experience before. I mean, we are, at least me as a female, like I will be the first to admit that sometimes I'm a little harder on the male romance novelists just because they write things that I'm like, that's not real life.
Our parts don't work that way.
Exactly. And like I take some of that with me too, as though like when I'm reading these male romances, like I've never have been a man before. I don't know that experience. How can I write that more accurately? So whether it be, again, a male-female storyline or a male-male storyline or a female-female storyline. I know a ton of people who are bisexual who have never been with someone of the same sex. Mm-hmm. So even though they might want to write that storyline, there are still ways for us to do that justice while giving the LGBTQ plus community or whatever person it is we're writing about the benefit that they deserve to be accurately described in text.
Yeah, I have to admit, so a lot of the romance that I've read where there's been more than one man, I would say the majority of them, the men don't, as they say, cross swords.
Exactly.
Occasionally I have read some where in fact, I just finished one in the Dirty Daddy's anthology where it was.
I can't wait to read that.
Yeah, it was two men in a relationship who added a woman to their already existing relationship. So I've read a couple like those.
I have one of my favorite authors. I'll send you her details. Her name is Adora Crooks. She is out of New Orleans, and she's like this phenomenal hipster that I always tell my wife, I wish I was her. Like, if I was 10 years younger, I would be the way this woman is now. Like, she's just so cool. And I have the biggest crush on her because of how cool she is. She writes mainly male, female poly stories. And they are some of the best stories I've ever read. And I definitely have to send you her details because I think you'd really appreciate her books too.
Yeah. I think maybe it's written the way they are is because I know a lot of women who have the fantasy of watching two guys together.
Yeah.
Which I guess is fair. Guys fantasize about two women together. So why not the opposite? I'm just surprised with as many bisexual women as I know that we don't see more romance with two women and one man.
Exactly.
I think I've maybe seen one, and I've read a lot of romance novels.
It is such a little niche that you don't see. And, it's funny too, just kind of coming full circle with me as a writer, where I started to where I am now too. I was very hesitant, even as an open queer woman, to write female storylines when I first started. I feel like they get such a bad rep and that they're just not given the love that they deserved. And I worried about myself being able to bring justice to a storyline that was two women. And one day my wife finally looked at me and she's like, you're queer. Like, you, if anyone should be writing this type of story, it's you. You know what you're talking about. Like,
you've experienced it.
Yeah. So earlier this year, back in June, I actually came out with, scratch that. In February, I came out with my first queer story that was female. It was a real quick shibari themed novella. If you can't tell, like I said, I love shibari. It tends to pop up in everything of mine. And then in June, I came out with my first full-length queer story, which was a female storyline. And it's been the best seller that I've had so far. So it was kind of like a slap in the face of, don't be afraid of writing the true stories of who you are, because those are the stories that are going to sell because those are the stories people resonate with.
Well, yeah, I think people want, one of the things that we love about romance is picturing ourselves
exactly
in that story. That's the imagination. And so there are women who want to read this and picture themselves, have it be with another woman.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, whether that's something somebody wants to experience in real life or not, they get to do that with books. And I think that's super cool. I know for myself, like you can ask anybody who knows me, I talk a hell of a lot of game. I will talk myself up all day. But at the end of the day, if I saw a penis in real life after not seeing one in real life for probably a decade, I would probably be terrified.
Okay.
But I
have to tell you, they're not all they're cracked up to be. This is my running. This is my running joke. Do you know how we know that sexual orientation is not a choice? Because I'm straight. Would I want to be attracted to a man if I had a choice?
Right? That's what I'm talking about. Like, at the end of the day, I would probably be afraid if I saw one in real life, but I still want to read about them and enjoy that aspect of it.
Well, that's fantastic. All right. So obviously we know you're coming back next year.
Heck yeah, I am.
Right. Did you sign up for 2025 yet too?
I did.
Yes.
I don't think Nikki's going to be able to get me away from this one. She's going to have to trespass me from the building if she doesn't want me to show up.
I will be there every year. I said, especially if you keep throwing it around my birthday, this is my excuse to take off of work and go, this is my birthday treat to myself.
And it's the perfect treat too. You get to come to Orlando, spend a couple days in the sun. We're going to go to the theme park. We're going to ride rides. We're going to eat so many Mickey Mouse shaped foods.
Yes.
And then we're going to keep doing it again every year. And it's going to be fantastic.
Do they make princess ears? I need princess ears.
All
right.
They have some that are like all the different characters. Oh, yeah.
I need some princess ears.
They used to have a really cute pair that were all pink sequins. I don't know if they still have that pair or not, but I will keep my eyes open for you.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So since I know people are going to want to read your books, where can they find your stuff?
They can find all of my paperbacks on my website, amitymalcom.com. If they want signed paperbacks, that's going to be the best bet. They can also get paperbacks and ebooks on Amazon. Naughty Valentine is the only one I have in audio right now, but I'm hoping to work towards getting the rest of those in audio soon too, because I'm an audiobook girly. I love a good audiobook.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us.
I will keep the countdown going of how many days till you get back down to Orlando or how many days till I get up there to see you again.
Perfect. All right. So that was a lot of fun. Learned some great stuff. I'm so glad we got to include my sister in pink, Amity. She's the one, guys, every time I talk about the fact that for next year, Smut Lovers, I'm going to Disney. It's Amity and her wife that I'm going to Disney with.
I'm so fucking jealous of that.
I desperately need to just like do a fun vacation. And I mean, it's really quick. Literally, it's one day at Disney and then turn around and come right back home because, you know, work and bills and shit like that.
That shit just gets in the way of fun.
Right. But we also got to talk with one of the models, Tony. And I know this is an audio podcast, but I'm telling you, go look Tony up because Tony's hot. And I see why he's a cover model. And he's built just the way I like him. So it's perfect. But next week, we've got a bunch more interviews with some great, amazing authors. A couple people that I was totally fangirling over and very excited to meet. So I hope you guys will come back for episode 2. And maybe, though I highly doubt it, Dara might actually have her voice back by then.
Nope.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you have a question you would like answered or just have a story about the lifestyle you want to share, you can send us a voicemail and maybe it'll be featured in an episode. Just go to pinkkinkpodcast.com to contact us.
Follow us on social media. On Twitter, Instagram, and FetLife, we are Pink Kink Podcast. And on TikTok, we are Pink Kink Podcast 2.0. Join our Facebook group, Pink Kink Podcast, and hang out with other pink kinksters.
If you love what we do and are able to help support us, we are on Patreon. Just look for us on patreon.com/pinkkinkpodcast. You can also help support our affiliates, which benefits small businesses and Pink Kink.
Even if you can't show your support financially, there are other ways you can help. You can spread the word about our kinky podcast and tell your friends about us. You can also rate and review Pink Kink on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. The 5-star reviews really help.
Don't forget to subscribe to Pink Kink so you don't miss a minute of the fun. New episodes come out every Friday.
Until next time, stay pretty, stay safe,
and stay twisted.